My wife of 16 years had an emotional affair and wanted my consent to take it further. I recently found this subreddit and it's been helping me understand and cope with this god-awful nightmare I'm in. I'm using a throwaway account because I spend a lot of time elsewhere on Reddit. My wife, 40F, and I, 44M, have been married 16 years and have 2 elementary school-age kids. Over 2 months ago, she pulled me aside one night to tell me she's been having an emotional affair, her exact words, with this guy she's been hanging out with for the past couple of months. I know the guy, AF, and I was aware that they've been hanging out. Having opposite-sex friends has never been a problem in our marriage, at least until now, since we've both been conscious of boundaries. Also worth noting, their initial hangouts weren't unusual since her AF has a similar-aged kid and the meetups started as public space playdates. This is what she told me that night. "You know, AF? The guy I've been hanging out with? Well, yesterday I confessed to him that I think I'm having an emotional affair. You should also know that a month back he told me he was polyamorous, and this was in response to me telling him about 2 of my friends who are polyamorous. And yesterday when I told him about my feelings, he said that he felt the same way, but we now need to pause and get your husband's consent." I was stunned to say the least, but calmly taking this in and trying to be open-minded. She and I have talked about her polyamorous friends before. I know her friends, but not well, and my wife has even expressed interest in non-monogamy for us, but farther in the future. She was adamant that this not be a thing we try until the kids are out of the house. She was also adamant that if, when we tried non-monogamy, that emotional attachments are to be kept to a minimum. I said this could be fun to discuss and explore, and that I was open to whatever enhanced our relationship provided we protect our marriage. She agreed. Some more context about our relationship. Our sex life has been quite fulfilling even after 16 years of marriage. She has not once expressed that I'm not giving her enough physical attention. Probably too much if she were pressed to admit it. However, our communication has been a problem for years. It was fine before kids, but then got progressively worse. You know the stereotypical boy/girl relationship where the girl says, "We need to talk," and the boy would rather do anything else? That's us, but reversed. I love to talk about anything. And I love a healthy disagreement. We can easily talk about what to have for dinner or what to watch on Netflix, sure, but anything potentially problematic like finances or household stuff or planning for the future she avoids like a plague. I'll sometimes insist we address an issue, but I've also learned to back off when it appears it's going to make the situation worse. Also know that she was just recently diagnosed ADHD. I suspect a combination of ADHD, anxiety, and depression is at play here with her. And we also have 2 kids, so everything's damn hard on top of life in general. Therefore, when she brought up non-monogamy, I also saw it as a chance to start having deep discussions again. I saw it as an opportunity to bring us closer. But these talks never quite happened like I had hoped. We would talk, but not in depth and not for very long. I attributed this to her just being generally exhausted by parenting and work in life. I should mention here that this would have been a year before we first met her AF. Yes, I met him too. And I'm as confident as I can be that their friendship didn't start until a year and a half after her first mentioning non-monogamy as a possibility for us in the future. So, she asked for my consent to open our marriage. She wanted to have this physical and emotional relationship with AF, and she stressed that she also wanted us to continue as the primary relationship. I asked her if she changed her mind about emotional attachments, and she said she has. That she now knows she needs an emotional connection first before having a physical relationship. After discussing it a bit, I said I might be open to this, but would need to think about it. And we went to bed. And in the middle of the night my heart started pounding and my mind started racing. I didn't know it at the time, but this was the first night of 2 months of bad sleep as I would develop waking insomnia. By morning, and significantly exhausted, I told my wife that my body's telling me something isn't right and I'll need more time to think about it. The next 5 days were excruciatingly hard. At one point my wife noticed I seemed to be progressing through the stages of grief. I conceded that was an intriguing observation, but then wondered, what am I grieving? Before the week was up, we were contacting marriage therapists. In my reduced state, I let my wife handle this, and she would end up picking a therapist who specialized in both marriage counseling and open relationships. The open relationship question in our therapy sessions ultimately petered out as an issue, since it was clear from the first meeting that our marriage needed more attention than any discussion of opening it. Another problem here is that while I could talk about this with my wife and our therapist, and she had her friends to talk to, I didn't have anybody else. Her situation was so secretive. Therefore, I told her I needed more help and asked if I could reach out to one of my longtime friends and get his advice. She agreed, but I could only talk to him. And after telling him what had happened, he pointed out the obvious, that she was cheating on me, being selfish and acting totally crazy. Around this time, I discovered that she was still seeing her AF several times a week. They go out drinking together, have lunch together, or she'd go to his house at night and watch TV. She said that we're just friends and that we're not doing anything wrong. I was hurt, but I wasn't thinking clearly enough to ask her to stop. 2.5 weeks after the initial bombshell, which for me meant poor sleep, a minimal appetite, therapy, and many hours getting help from my friend, I gave her my answer: I choose us. I don't want to open our marriage. You can pick me or him, but not both. Also, while you're figuring this out and we're going to therapy, I want you to cut off all contact with AF. She refused to stop seeing him, of course. She said they're just friends. I countered with, you are definitely more than friends. She said she had a right to be friends with whomever she wanted, and she resented me trying to control her. During the next 4 weeks, she and I continued to be civil while we worked through this, but our arguments got more and more heated. We'd go on a few dates to see if that would help things. I felt they did. She thought they felt hollow. I think we were both right. Our arguments intensified. She got an individual therapist. I got an individual therapist. And we kept going to therapy together. And at some point, she started sleeping in the guest bedroom. And when I realized that she was unable to cut herself off from her AF, I told her, not asking permission, that I would be contacting her AF for an in-person meetup. And I did. He wouldn't meet me without her, and I said I didn't care. I had 3 objectives for our meeting. To confirm what my wife was saying was true. Remember, she was my only source that this whole thing was actually happening. To look him in the eye while asking him these questions and gauge his reaction. To tell him to stop communicating with my wife in any way while we were in therapy and still married. At first, he denied they were anything more than friends, but midway through our chat he shifted his narrative to my feelings about your wife are private. When I told him to stop seeing her, he said, I support her choice in all this. I said, that's nice, but you are an adult who's also making a choice, and you're choosing to undermine our marriage. He didn't respond, and I said, we're done here. My wife, who was there the whole time, was humiliated and blamed me for humiliating her. I felt I had to do what I did. By the next night, she said she's made up her mind and wanted a divorce. Hearing her explicitly say she wanted a divorce was the hardest moment for me. She sounded so sure. The next day, I'm calling my parents, my sister, and my in-laws to give the news. Yes, I'm very close to my wife's parents. They regard me as a son, and my love for them is just as strong. They knew a little about what we were going through, but not about the AF, because my wife didn't feel like that was any of their business, her words. So I told them. Their response was unexpected. I was devastated about getting a divorce, but my in-laws were strangely calm. My mother-in-law said, give her time and space. Remove yourself from her day-to-day as much as possible. We love you both no matter what happens. I didn't really understand, but they explained that this happened to them about 30 years ago. My mother-in-law had an emotional affair, and the antidote for her was the time and space needed to let the reality of her choice set in. They explained to me that it's not guaranteed to work, but it's the best course of action to take if the marriage is to be saved. This conversation was a couple of weeks ago. Since then, I've ceased most daily interactions with my wife. I'll talk about the kids if necessary, about mundane household stuff, but not about us. No arguments and no emotional reactions. She'd tell me she's going out to see her AF and I'd say okay. One day she realized that I told others about her emotional affair, including her mom and dad, and she got angrier than I've ever seen in my life. I assumed the outburst was her house of cards starting to come crashing down. She fumed at me, "That's not your story to tell." But I only said, "I understand." No reaction, no discussion. She said that I've ruined her relationship with her parents for possibly the rest of her life. I thought, no, you did that. But I didn't say anything. I had a trip planned with my friend since before all this started. This is with my friend who helped me through this, so I just recently left for that. In the past, I'd normally share photos of my adventures with my wife and we'd chat each night. Not this time. It's been near silence. So that brings us to the present. I have an appointment coming up to consult with a lawyer. I'm sleeping better than I have in a long time in addition to eating well and exercising. My wife is the love of my life, but I know it takes two to make this work. I will take her back if she ultimately makes the choice to come back. She'll have to do some significant soul searching to convince me, and even then I'm not going to easily accept her turnabout choice, but if not, then I need to let her go and move on. Thanks for listening to my story. And feel free to comment, ask questions, or give advice. I welcome it.